Recording in progress.
So, and I'm sure we'll have a few more people pop in throughout the morning. But for right now, we are going to, I won't say take a break from First Kings, but what we're doing is we're kind of shifting into things that happened during First Kings. We're going to go into the Proverbs, some of the writings of Solomon as we get ready for this Advent season. I want to kind of take your minds off of that and get you focused on other things. And so we'll do that this week and probably next week. The reason I say probably next week is I think I asked y'all last week or week before, somewhere in there, about doing an Advent series, 4 weeks of Advent. And so I signed us up for that. And then after that, they posted when the dates for the webinars would be, which we were going to watch them afterward anyway. We weren't going to watch them live because I knew they were going to be during the week. I just didn't know when. Oh, well, the first one is the Monday after the first Sunday in Advent. So yeah, so we're going to be a week behind to start with. So the fourth week of that is actually going to take place after the first of the year before we get back into First Kings. So just letting you know, but that was with a really nice Irish scholar named John Dominic Crossan. He's a really neat fella, interesting. He's got some interesting takes on things, and it's done in the style of an interview kind of thing. He'll have a moderator, with questions, and on the live version, people will be able to watch, to ask questions of it and stuff. But I'll have to edit it for time for our purposes. And then, after the first of the year, we'll get back into finishing up Proverbs and getting into Kings. Now, so as we start the book of Proverbs, there's 25 chapters. Not all of them are attributed to Solomon. Most of them are. Some of them are by 3 or 4 different writers, and they're named. And then the last chapter is actually called Anonymous. They don't know who wrote the last chapter. Of course, when they were put out, they weren't chapters. We've done that in recent time, put chapters and verses and things. So just some interesting things about that. I do have some notes as we go through. We're going to do the first 5 chapters of Proverbs today. Proverbs go fast because they're verse. They're not like narrative or anything. So they go really fast, and there's, for the most part, they're just a lot of adages. A lot of them are going to be things you've heard before, and not realize that they were actually in Scripture. Interesting things here. So let me go ahead and share our screen, and then we'll get started. We're in Proverbs. Comes after Psalms. I know that helps. Basically, if you flip your Bible open to the middle, you're in Psalms somewhere. And then Proverbs is the chapter, right? Go to presentation over here, and for anybody who jumps online, I'm going to start the video real quick and then get out of it real quick. Been having issues with the internet connection. Every time I come in, it's disconnected.
You going through up?
Yeah, it's everything's stopping, or what used to be suddenly.
It's off the none.
Okay, so I'm calling it First Kings Part 9, but I'm gonna rename that to something else, like First Kings Part 8.2 or something like that, since we're still going to be in First Kings. So Proverbs chapter 1. The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, for learning about wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for gaining instruction in wise dealing, righteousness, justice, and equity, to teach shrewdness to the simple, knowledge and prudence to the young. Let the wise too hear and gain in learning, and the discerning acquire skill to understand a proverb and a figure, the words of the wise and their riddles. Okay, so that gives what these are and what they're for. That's if you were to look at a teaching plan, if you were a teacher and had to build up a class teaching plan, that would be What these are, that would be the title, and then the goal, the purpose of the class. So that those first 5, 6 verses there are all about that. So then it begins. The fear of the Lord. I want y'all to keep that phrase in mind because you are going to see that a lot. Okay? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Hear, my child, your father's instruction, and do not reject your mother's teaching. Now, this is interesting because we assume that Solomon had other siblings, or I'm sorry, not siblings, children, that he had children, but the only one that's ever named, we'll find out in a few chapters of First Kings, is named Rehoboam, and Rehoboam is a fool. He's called foolish. And so if this is really written to Rehoboam, we can see what the effects of his teachings were on Rehoboam. They didn't really sit well. They didn't sit with him. He didn't listen, didn't follow, anything like that. So just thought I'd throw that in there. And then he says it again. Hear, my child, your father's instruction. Oh, did I repeat that? I guess I did. Yep. Okay. Well, always in paper. Hear, my child, your father's instruction. Do not reject your mother's teaching, for they are a fair garland for your head and pendants for your neck. My child, if sinners entice you, do not consent. Oh boy. If they say, come with us, let us lie in wait for blood. Let us wantonly ambush the innocent. Like Sheol, let us swallow them alive and whole, like those who go down to the pit. We shall find all kinds of costly things. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Throw in your lot among us. We will all have one purse. Now, that's all in quotations there. That is what sinners would do, if they're enticing you. Those are things they would tell you to do. My child, do not walk in their way. Keep your foot from their paths. Interesting, the word paths is its actual description is a rutted way, like a cart would make, after being used many, many times. So the idea of paths is this idea that someone else has trod that way before. They've gone through the exact same thing you have. They've led the way. So that's what that. For their feet run to evil, and they hurry to shed blood. And you're going to see feet quite a bit. It's the same word as anything else we see for feet. Sometimes it's a euphemism, sometimes it is not. In this case, it is not. However, in just a little bit, it will be. So, for in vain is the net baited while a bird is looking on, yet they lie in wait to kill themselves and set an ambush for their own lives. Basically, the bird don't know that it's a snare. All the bird sees is food, goes down, lands in it, then the net is sprung. But by the same token, that's exactly what these sinners that entice his child to do are doing. They, in their own will to do evil, they're actually ensnaring themselves by doing so. Such is the end of all who are greedy for gain. It takes away the life of its possessors. Wisdom, that's an interesting word. It is Sophia. So if you've ever heard of Sophia, that is the word for wisdom. It is a female characteristic for God. Wisdom cries out in the street, in the squares, she raises her voice. At the busiest corner, she cries out. At the entrance of the city gates, she speaks. In quotations here, how long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing and fools hate knowledge? Give heed to my reproof. I will pour out my thoughts to you. I will make my words known to you. So even the simple ones should be able to understand wisdom. Because I have called and you refuse. So now we find out that it's not that they didn't understand, it's that they just refused to heed it. I have stretched out my hand and no one heeded. And because you have ignored all my counsel and would have none of my reproof, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when panic strikes you. When panic strikes you like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind. When distress and anguish come upon you, Then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. See that phrase there again? Ooh. Would have none of my counsel and despised all of my reproof. Now, as I'm noted here at the bottom of this verse 29, fear of the Lord, it refers back to verse 7. So it kind of begins and ends with the fear of the Lord. And that doesn't mean being afraid. It means being respect, reverent. Yeah. So we're going to see that a whole lot more. Verse 31, therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way and be sated with their own devices. Means they'll say, if you don't know what sated means, just means filled. You're not hungry anymore for it. For waywardness kills the simple, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But those who listen to me will be secure and will live at ease without dread of disaster. So that doesn't seem like the Proverbs we remember, does it? So as I mentioned, if this was a lesson plan for a teacher, verse 1 would have been the title, verse 2 through 8 would have been the purpose. The rest of what we've just read is intro. You've got to understand what Proverbs are in order to understand what you're about to read. And it also kind of goes into, it'll get into it, you'll see it, what you should expect from it too. So all this is intro, which is kind of neat. Proverbs chapter 2. Now, Proverbs chapter 2 is called acrostic. And what that means is, if you notice, there's 22 verses. Each verse begins with a different letter of the Hebrew alphabet. There's only 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. So each verse goes in order. Now, there's several acrostic chapters in the Bible. The most common one, the one that we're really knowledgeable about is Psalm 119, the longest chapter in the Bible. It's got like 180 something verses. But it has sections, and each section is broken off into an acrostic. Aliens, bet, Gimel. And they're labeled that. So this is very much the same, except each verse instead of each section. Each verse starts with a letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So, my child, if you accept my words and treasure up my commandments within you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. If you indeed cry out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand what? The fear of the Lord, and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk blamelessly, guarding the paths of justice and preserving the way of his faithfulness. Then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity, every good path. Now, we've talked about the Hebrew word for righteousness is the same word for justice. So whenever something is repeated, it means it's important. Equity is an interesting, we read it in chapter 1 as well, but equity, if you understand the different aspects of fairness, we hear the word fair, but fair is relative, depending on who the receiver is. So if you talk about equality, which is a different word, equality means everyone gets the same thing. So if you have $5 and 5 people, each person's going to get $1. Okay, that's equality. Equity, on the other hand, bases the discernment on need. Well, if of those 5 people, you take the same example, you got $5 and 5 people. If the first person is rich, he don't need $1. If the second person is pretty well off, they probably don't need it either. Third person, he's kind of middle of the ground, he could probably use $1. The next one is just above poverty level. He could probably use $1. And the last one is completely in poverty. Well, he gets $3. That's equity. It's bringing everybody up kind of to the same level. That at least that's the purpose of equity. So that's what that means. Okay, moving on. For wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Prudence will watch over you, and understanding will guard you. It will save you from the way of evil, from those who speak perversely, who forsake the paths of uprightness, to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perverseness of evil, those whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. You will be saved from the loose woman. Yeah, things started getting a little weird here. So if you thought Song of Solomon was erotic, this can get kind of the same way early on here in Proverbs. So you will be saved from the loose woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words. The word for loose woman and adulteress are the same word, and they basically mean foreigner or stranger. I mean, at its base is what it means, and it basically means anything that is invading your space. There is a German word, and I cannot think of it, but it would be similar to. Um, I'll think of it next week probably, but if you've ever watched the old Dracula or Frankenstein movies, this idea that they're watching through the window or they're in the house and you don't know it, that's they have invaded your space, whether you know it or not. That's kind of the same idea that's going on. 17, who forsakes the partner of her youth and forgets her sacred covenant. For her way leads down to death and her paths to the shades. This has to do about relationship, by the way. Those who go to her never come back, nor do they regain the paths of life. Therefore, walk in the way of the good and keep to the paths of the just. Interesting word. I know I keep doing these. Down here again, verse 16. Smooth word. We talked about the word for loose woman and adulteress here, but the word smooth, it's the same exact word that David used for the 5 stones, that was used for David's 5 stones. So there's a finality to it. The smooth, it leads to something.
This says seductive
Is that what smooth means? Okay.
in here,
So it's the same exact word, which is interesting.
New International.
Gives a whole new meaning to David picking up those 5 smooth stones.
Yeah, it does.
21, for the upright will abide in the land, and the innocent will remain in it, but the wicked will be cut off from the earth, and the treacherous will be rooted out of it. Well, that all kind of sounds familiar if you read the New Testament at all. Proverbs chapter 3. My child, there we go again, my child, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and abundant welfare, they will give you. Do not let loyalty and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will find favor and high regard in the sight of God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not rely on your own insight. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make straight your paths. We all know that one. I remember a song by man, what is it with me and words and names today?
Fatigue.
He was with the Ragamuffins, the Ragamuffin band.
That doesn't help me a lot.
Yeah, no. He died. He died. Freak car accident. Anyway, the song, his version of it was kind of a real, lilty Judy. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. He will make your path straight. Anyway, it's not Chris Rice, but it's something like that.
He's a comic.
No, well, I mean, I guess he could be, but he wasn't. He was known for his kind of neat music as opposed to comedy. He built his own dulcimer. He played his own dulcimer. I'll think of it here in a little bit. Okay, verse 7. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be a healing for your flesh and a refreshment for your body. Honor the Lord with your substance and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will be bursting with wine. Those 2 verses itself they specifically talk about Deuteronomy and Leviticus, the idea of first fruits, not only of your livestock, but also of your crops. the first fruits, the best.
We may not want to use the new international version for our, word, definitions, because they're not even inclusive. Instead of my child, it's always my son.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, NRSV is not always like that either. I mean, it still refers to God as He, even though, we manifest God within our own image. We're used to the word He, but God doesn't
have a gender.
encompass gender, so anyway, I understand. My child, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof, for the Lord reproves the one he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. The word trust here literally means to submit. Interesting. Happy are those here. Now we start getting into phrases, proverbs that we're kind of used to. Happy are those who find wisdom and those who get understanding, for her income is better than silver and her revenue better than gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. This is talking about wisdom, Sophia. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life. Ooh, interesting imagery there. To those who lay hold of her, those who hold her fast are called happy. The Lord, by wisdom, founded the earth. By understanding, he established the heavens. By his knowledge, the deeps broke open and the clouds dropped down the dew. That kind of a indirect reference to the flood narrative there. 21, my child, do not let these escape from your sight. Keep sound wisdom and prudence, and they will be life for your soul and adornment for your neck. We've seen that imagery a few times already. Something hanging around the neck or on their head or something. Then you will walk on your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. If you sit down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. How'd you like to wake up from that nap after eating all that turkey on Thursday and say, well, that was sweet? That's what I'll be doing several times, probably. Then you will not be afraid of sudden panic or of the storm that strikes the wicked, for the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due. Interesting. When it is in your power to do it. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come again. Tomorrow I will give it when you have it with you. Anybody get Jesus in some of that there? That's almost verbatim what Jesus said when your neighbor comes to you asking for a cloak. Why not give him two or something? Don't send him away. Really interesting. Mm-hmm. Do not plan harm against your neighbor. That goes back to the Ten Commandments, don't it? Who lives trustingly beside you. Remember, trustingly is the same word, or very, very, it's synonymous with submission. So do not quarrel with anyone without cause. So that does tell us that there are reasons to get into a quarrel with someone. When no harm has been done to you, do not envy the violent and do not choose any of their ways. For the perverse are an abomination to the Lord, but the upright are in his confidence. The Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the abode of the righteous. Toward the scorners he is scornful, but to the humble he shows favor. The wise will inherit honor, but stubborn fools disgrace. That sounds like something you'd see in the TV show Game of Thrones or something. Was a byline, that narrator. The wise will inherit honor, but stubborn fools disgrace. James Earl Jones speaking that or something. Proverbs chapter 4. Listen, children. Now we've got a plural here. Children, to a father's instruction, and be attentive that you may gain insight. For I give you good precepts. Do not forsake my teaching. When I was a son with my father, tender and my mother's favorite, he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words. Keep my commandments and live. Get wisdom, get insight. Do not forget nor turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, and she will keep you. Love her, and she will guard you. I'm talking about wisdom again. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. And whatever else you get insight. Oh, man.
Wisdom for 12
Rule number one, she's always right. Rule number two, if she's ever wrong, her rule number one. I don't want that to, prize her highly, and she will exalt you. She will honor you with grace, her. She will place on your head a fair garland. She will bestow on you a beautiful crown. Now we have several words for crown in Scripture. Most of them are in Greek, like the word diadem, which is a royal crown, and then you've got this other word, which is a victor's crown. Again, the word is escaping me. But this is a Hebrew word for crown here, and it is a Torah, which actually we get a word from in English, TR. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there. Hear my child, back to singular, and accept my words, that the years of your life may be many. I have taught you the way of wisdom. I have led you in the paths of uprightness. When you walk, your step will not be hampered. If you run, you will not stumble. Keep hold of instruction. Do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life. Excuse me. Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it. Do not go on it. Turn away from it and pass on, for they cannot sleep unless they have done wrong. They are robbed of sleep unless they have made someone sad. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. But the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter until full day. This idea of the light of dawn, it is I didn't put it on here. I should have as a note. But it is a light so bright that you can't visualize it. It's speaking of like Shekinah glory, but it's not Shekinah glory. Shekinah glory. Shekinah. If you don't know what Shekinah is, that is a light that emanates from God, and you can't look at that. So this would be just a step below that. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know what they stumble over. My child, be attentive to my words. How many times have you said that? How many times have you said that to your kids?
Yeah.
Incline your ear to my sayings. Do not let them escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and healing to all their flesh. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. Put away from your crooked speech and put devious talk far from you. Let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. Keep straight the path of your feet, and all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil. That verse right there, do not swerve to the right or to the left, turn your foot away from evil, is almost verbatim in the Greek in Luke 9:62 when Jesus says. So, Proverbs chapter 5. My child, be attentive to my wisdom. Incline your ear to my understanding so that you may hold on to prudence. Prudence is a virtue, not a person. And your lips may guard knowledge. For the lips of a loose woman, here we go again. For the lips of a loose woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother. There's that word smooth, smoother than oil. Oil in this case means gladness and prosperity, what it's symbolic of. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps follow the path to shame. She does not keep straight to the path of life. Her ways wander, and she does not know it. And now, my child, listen to me and do not depart from the words of my mouth. Keep your way far from her. Do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your honor to others and your ears to the merciless, your years to the merciless, and strangers take their fill of your wealth, and your labors go to the house of an alien. And at the end of your life, you groan when your flesh and body are consumed, and you say, oh, how I hated discipline, and my heart despised reproof. I did not listen to the voice of my teachers or incline my ear to my instructors. Now I am at the point of utter ruin in the public assembly. Drink water from your own cistern, flowing water from your own well. It is interesting the imagery that we're seeing here, because this is presumably Solomon that's writing these proverbs. Cistern, used in another context in the Song of Solomon, an erotic love letter or a series of love letters. Cistern in Proverbs refers to wife. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Drink water from your own cistern. So if this was in Song of Solomon, it would be specifically referring to be faithful to your wife. Should your springs be scattered abroad, streams of water in the streets, let them be for yourself alone and not for sharing with strangers. Let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in the wife of your youth. You've heard that before. A lovely deer, a graceful doe. May her breasts satisfy you at all times. May you be intoxicated always by her love. Why should you be intoxicated, my son, by another woman and embrace the bosom of an adulteress? So we've got a lot of imagery here of unfaithfulness, and it's specifically referring to unfaithfulness to God, but he's using the analogy of a bride. For human ways are under the eyes of the Lord, and he examines all their paths. The iniquities of the wicked ensnare them, and they are caught in the coils of their sin. They die for lack of discipline, and because of their great folly, they are lost. Okay. So that is the first 5 chapters of Proverbs. We're a fifth of the way through it.
There are 31 chapters, but 25 attributed to Solomon.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Because 31 is the
five.
godly woman.
Oh, yeah, it's we're actually going to read. We're going to go through the first 24 before we go back into 13. Then we'll get to the rest of them later on, because those are true. Okay. So next time we'll still be in the Proverbs of Solomon, unless something happens between now and then with that Advent thing I was waiting for. We'll get the next 5 chapters: practical admonitions, the false attraction of adultery, the gifts of wisdom, wisdom's part of creation, wisdom's feast, general maxims, folly's invitation and promise, and wise sayings of Solomon. Ooh, okay. So wow, thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I get a short week this week to do all this.
Is Kathy working today?
Yes, he works all day.
Bye, everybody.
Every Sunday? Or